This morning, we're looking into federal funding the University of Texas receives.
To help break down how much they're getting and where that money is going, Jeremy Portnoy, an investigative journalist from OpenTheBooks.com. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, Allison and John Carlos.
Well, thanks for being with us. Can you give us a summary of the funding coming to UT Austin?
So we went back through the last 5 years of federal grants and contracts. We found $3.5 billion coming to UT Austin. That's been increasing every year. 2024 was the most expensive. So we're talking $1 billion from the Department of Defense, then about $600 million each from the Department of Education, the National Science Foundation, the Health Department, and a bunch of other agencies getting in there as well.
So Jeremy, let's talk about what projects that money has paid for.
So the most money is from the federal government going to the school's Defense Research Advancement Team. So they've been researching AI, projects for the Space Force. Then you've also got funding for Frontera, that's the supercomputer on campus that they say is faster than any other college campus in America. There's money for Lyndon B. Johnson's Presidential Library. But overall, there's 800 different grants and contracts in there covering a whole slew of different topics.
Jeremy, is UT getting more money from Washington than from the state of Texas?
Yeah, that's correct, right? If you go back all the way to the 70s, state funding used to make up about half of the college's revenue, and only 5% was from tuition. Now, today, the state is only providing 10% of the college's revenue, so they're getting 20% of their funding from tuition and even more from the federal government. And if you look over time, that means tuition's increased as well. Back in the 70s, if you adjust for inflation, the tuition was about $1,000. Now, today, we're looking at close to $12,000.
Jeremy, let's do a comparison. So are similar amounts of federal funding going to colleges in other states?
Yeah, this is not unusual. We looked last week at Ohio State, just ahead of their playoff game with Texas. They're getting almost an identical amount of federal funding. Some bizarre projects in there. They're studying bug eating, artistic expression, and rock climbing. And it's on par with the top private schools as well. If you look at Harvard and Yale, they're getting pretty much a similar amount of federal funding as UT Austin and Ohio State.
All right, thank you so much for the information you shared with us this morning.
That's interesting.
Of course, thanks for having me.
And you can find these reports at OpenTheBooks.com.